Welcome back. Before she was a Canadian Olympic hurdler, Perdita Felicien was a little girl born to a single mother struggling to get by. In her book, My Mother's Daughter, she is sharing her mother's story, amazing story of resiliency. And Perdita joins us now. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. So happy to be here.
So wonderful to have you on the show and to talk about such a wonderful, wonderful book. So listen, in this book, Perdita, you take us through your athletic career, your Olympic career, but this is also very, very much a book about your mother, Catherine, and her journey. And you take us all the way, beginning in her childhood in St. Lucia, through becoming a teen mom. I'm curious if you could share with our audience how it is that your mom came to Canada.
Yeah, it is a story that I didn't know all the details of. So my mother had to drop out of school before she was, 12 years old. And she did that because her parents made her basically. She had to sell on the beach to tourists to help them make money. So she was doing that for years. And she's a teen mom at this time. It's the late 70s. And, she's been a beach vendor for years. It's her thing. She sees one day a young man with a baby at the hotel pool. Now, there's signs everywhere that says do not trespass because beach vendors will get in trouble if they do. But my mother sees an opportunity that she wants. And she asks the man if he needs a babysitter. And the baby's about, I think, 3 months old. And he says yes. The wife says yes. And that really started their friendship that brought her to Canada. Now, this family is from Oshawa, Ontario. And so that's really where her journey in Canada began.
So she worked as a live-in nanny and housekeeper for a few different families in Canada, and she wasn't treated very well. In fact, you share in the book that when she was in labor with you, her employer actually asked her to make them a few sandwiches. Tell us more about what happened.
Yeah, this is the part of the book that was really difficult to write, Cynthia. And even this family is no longer alive. At the time, I was born in Oshawa, Ontario in 1980 of August. My mom goes into labor in their basement. She's living with them. She takes care of them night and day. They've given her no maternity leave. And when she knocks on the door to Mrs. Harry's bedroom to say, I'm going into labor, I need someone to take me to the hospital, well, they're too inconvenienced to do that. And so my mother calls a taxi, but I guess the woman must have felt bad. But before my mother was able to be driven to the hospital to give birth to me, she has to make them 10 tuna sandwiches. She has to cut them up, take off the crust, because this family does not like crust on their bread, yes. And she has to freeze them, because they know if their little nanny is gone for days, they'll have nothing to eat. Can you imagine the indignity?
No, I'm just ashamed listening to this story, but you share so much in this book, and let's talk about your story a little bit. Certain kids from a certain age, they dream about being an athlete, but that wasn't really your story. When you started out, you weren't so sure how far this would take you. So talk about how you got your start.
Yeah, you know what? I used to run from the hurdles. I hated the event. It's like 10 obstacles in your way. Who wants to do that? Sorry, no time. And I was a teenager who was really reluctant to compete. And I didn't really want to get beat because I got beat in a really big race in grade 8. So in high school, I'm like, oh, I'm done with this sport thing. But it really was my mother. She says she encourages me. We know how we moms are. Sometimes we nag. So she really wanted me to go back and not give up. And I did. And I got a bunch of scholarship offers. And sport took off for me, but I never had this dream of the Olympics. I never had this dream of being a world champion. We really didn't know that it was an avenue to success because my mother, growing up, didn't really know anything about sport. She didn't have the luxury of that in her life.
Wow, unbelievable. Well, you go a lot of very vulnerable places in your book, including reliving some very difficult memories that you had of your father. And you share stories, for example, of when he turned off water to your house, times that he was calling immigration on your mother as well. So, what was that like for you to hear those stories, but also to relive this through the eyes of your mother?
Honestly, having you say it, it gives me chills, right? I say it and I can kind of control, but when someone else says it, I'm like, oh my God, Dad did do that. Those parts about going back in the past are hard because my dad is still alive. We still have a relationship. And he knows when I told him I'm going to be writing this book about my earliest memories, he knew what that meant. He was the last person that I told. And this is the difficulty about going back and digging up the past, is people who you still love, who maybe were bad people back then, have to now confront and face what they did to you. And I love my dad. I don't want to hurt him. And I know this will hurt him. I don't even know if the man has read it. That's the truth.
Wow. Listen, you know, the vulnerability it takes to go there. But you also share a lot. And you go into, of course, your athletic career and how you in the book say this opened so many doors for you. We remember you being a favorite going into that women's hurdles event at the 2004 Olympics in Athens. But then we watched and you suffered heartbreak when you took a tumble. And, you know, of course, all of this through the lens of your mother's story as well. What did your mom say to you after this moment?
The devastation and the trauma of that moment. And I reveal it in the book, what happened. Like going through the mix zone, I had some, you know, I pulled it together. And that was honestly just grit and toughness. As soon as I got beyond the media's glare, so, you know, the labyrinth of reporters, the world's press, I was now alone and I completely collapsed. Like I'm just a rag doll. No one knows what to do. And the only thing that they can think to do is, and mind you, this is like prehistoric 2004. So there's this huge satellite phone that they take out, which is funny, the things that you remember, hey? And they call my mother from 5,000 miles away and she answers and she says to me, Perdita, dry your tears. You are the gold. And that gave me something.
I mean, as we've mentioned, you really do go through all of the highs and the lows of your life. And one of the low points, very revealing to talk about, is the time when your family spent some time in a shelter. So why is it so important for you to share those stories?
So we showed up on the doorsteps of the Denise House, which is a women's shelter in Oshawa, Ontario, where I was born. And we were fleeing my dad. And Mel, you talked about the fact that he would turn off the water, he would torment my mom, and he would do things just to punish her. Let's say she didn't cook on time, or there wasn't enough money and he thought the groceries weren't enough, he would punish her. And so we showed up in November of 1987. Being in the women's shelter, though, when you're 6 and 7 years old, to me, it was like Wonderland. I'd never been to Wonderland, but it was like Wonderland to me. There's food, mom is laughing, there's safety, there's the waterworks. And the reason why all these years later, a portion of everything that I make from my mother's daughter is going to the Denise House is because it changed the trajectory of my life. They gave my mother a co-op house in Pickering, Ontario, which is my hometown. And that's where I found sport. That's where I found the hurdles. And truthfully, that is where the trajectory of my life changed to something positive. And it's hard when you go back to the past, you do the what ifs. And I wonder, what if my mother did not flee? What if we did not show up at the Denise House? What would have happened to my mother? What would have happened to us?
This book really is a love letter to your mother, and we are a few days away from Mother's Day. So I know your mother's there with you, so I'm just wondering, what's your Mother's Day message to your mom?
Can I have her come over? Like, can she, like...
Yes! Yes!
Yeah, bring her over.
Catherine!
Come on in. She's stalking y'all. She's like, okay, here she is. Mom, this is Cynthia.
Hello.
Hi, Catherine!
Can I give her my message?
Yes, please. We're going to try not to cry over here.
Okay, so, Mom, you know I love you. I love you deeply. One of the things that I will say about writing this memoir is it is very deep, it's very visceral, and there are things in this book that we were maybe ashamed to talk about years ago. But when I asked my mom in 2014 if I could tell the story, you said yes. Mm-hmm. And you said yes because you knew that it would allow me as a woman to know who I was and all the pieces of my story that I didn't know. You knew it would help heal me. Mm-hmm. But I know the big thing for you is you wanted other women who had faced what you'd faced to know that they are not alone, right? And that they can rise. And it doesn't matter really where you start. All that matters is who you become. And so, Mom, I have become something special because of you. I have the life I have because of you. You have 15 grandchildren who love and adore you, Mother. Like, we celebrate you not just on Mother's Day in May. We celebrate you every day. And we love you, Mama. We love you. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you for letting us share this beautiful moment. And Catherine and Perdita, just extraordinary women, both of you. And thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you.
And it's called My Mother's Daughter, a must-read. It is available everywhere. Get yourself a copy. Get your mom a copy. Heck, get everybody a copy. We'll be back right after this.